Quan LX, who's a community activist here in Houston, he was a member of the Nation of Islam, and he stepped out. He resigned or created his own group after the Philadelphia thugs were intimidating voters there. And he has told me multiple times about the fact that when he goes to black mosques in Texas, he sees Middle Eastern men who've never been to those mosques before trying to recruit young black Muslim men, just as they did Malvo and Muhammad, just as they did the recruiter in Oklahoma, just as they have from ex-members of the United States military. Who are these people recruiting young black Muslims who are impressionable, filling them with hatred, teaching them ways to engage in terrorism? Quan LX is offended by it. But apparently, if anybody else speaks out about terror cells operating in our country, about attempts by Al-Qaeda and some other front organizations that appear to be really nice guys to use the mosques as recruiting tools for the next generation of terrorists, the United States Congress should be holding hearings, and the American public should be applauding. That's exactly what should be going on. Michael Berry in for Mark Levin. More coming up. Headline. The White House is, from the Associated Press, White House promotes Muslim help against terrorism. The White House is pushing a message of religious tolerance ahead of this week's congressional hearing on Islamic radicalism, which has sparked protest on grounds it unfairly singles out Muslims as potential terrorists. Unfairly singles out Muslims as potential terrorists. Am I being punked? Is this a joke? Seriously. Unfairly singles out Muslims as potential terrorists. All Muslims are not terrorists, but dang near all terrorists are Muslims. That's a fact. And if you don't like that, I'm going to guess what group you're from. Look at the numbers. Anybody non-Muslim part of the 9/11 attack? Anybody non-Muslim part of the attempt to blow up downtown Portland while they're singing Christmas carols? Well, that was class. Anybody non-Muslim walk into a military base and shoot the place up screaming Allah Akbar? Anybody non-Muslim in Germany step onto a bus full of American servicemen and shoot them up? Anybody non-Muslim flying over on a plane trying to put a bomb in their britches? I could go on for a while. Anybody non-Muslim doing any of that stuff? Anybody non-Muslim at the World Trade Center? Anybody non-Muslim blowing themselves up at our embassies abroad? Just curious. Anybody non-Muslim doing all those? Well, Michael, that doesn't mean all Muslims are bad people. Yeah, I know. I'm smart enough to put it into context. Apparently you're not. Goodness gracious. Katie in New York City listening on WABC.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Great show. I really applaud your willingness to be as outspoken as you are. I just want to say that, I agree with you fundamentally. However, just legally speaking, I would only take issue with the idea that these hearings, what we can hope to accomplish at best is, exposing individuals that, are not fans of our country and want to rabble rouse a bunch of, want to rabble rouse and get, individuals into radical belief. But it's not, I can stand out in the street corner right now and scream, to the top of my lungs that I hope people blow this country up. But I'm not doing anything illegal because that's my First Amendment right to free speech. However, if I'm saying I want someone to come with me and make a plan to blow this country up, that's when I become, illegal. So I guess what I'm saying is I really don't anticipate these hearings exposing any terrorist plots. I anticipate them exposing terrorist beliefs, and that falls under, First Amendment protection. And so I guess, I would hate to see these hearings happen. Okay, fine, we end up, exposing a bunch of individuals that may or may not end up being dangerous. We have no proof that they will be. And in the end, we, incite more terrorist attacks against us by, quite frankly, for lack of a better term, taking off the terrorists. And so it's like I agree with you, and I think that you're right, and I love hearing you speak. I just don't see how this could potentially, expose any terrorist plots.
Well, trust me, I love hearing me speak too, but let me ask you this. It seems to me, I want you to think through your logic because it's a common logic. It seems to me that there is an undercurrent of fear toward Muslim fundamentalists, and that fear affects how you believe we should deal with them. In other words, no Muhammad cartoons, no South Park episodes, no burning of Quran. We don't want to upset them and offend them, because if we do,
right.
Then they're going to... Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right.
What are we dealing with? What are we dealing with when the most powerful nation on earth is incapable of addressing real threats inside our country? Now, here's the deal. You said we can't outlaw what you believe. We can only outlaw what you do, right?
Yes.
But isn't it true that if we're going to prevent what you might do, we first have to know what you believe?
Absolutely.
And only the people who believe will do. Someone who doesn't harbor terrorist intentions is not going to engage in a terrorist act. So it seems to me that the United States government's policy has been, we'll allow terrorist acts, and once they happen, we'll investigate and bring you to justice. Thanks for the call, Katie, but I think most Americans are of the opinion, I want you to prevent those acts. And the only way to know who the actor is going to be is the person who believes it ahead of time. We're not making it illegal to hold the belief that you want to blow this country up. We're simply saying we need to know who those people are so we can keep an eye on them. Because the alternative is, once they do their deed, amidst the rubble, we look for their correspondences. That's not acceptable. I have family I'd like to protect. Michael Berry in for Mark Levin. Isn't it interesting, with Peter King, Congressman Peter King in New York, holding these hearings, the concern amongst law enforcement and those with awareness of what's going on that's been expressed over and over again is that those who wish to target private citizens in this country to create terror, remember, terrorism is warfare carried out in a psychological fashion. When you can't win on the battlefield, you mess with people's minds. You force a nation to live in fear. I'm not sure what kind of sick makeup you have to get your thrills off of causing people to be afraid all the time. Because Al-Qaeda can't negotiate with the United States. When asked what they want to go away, they can't tell you. They don't have an agenda other than, I want to kill those people over there because they have running water and electricity, and I hate them for it. So we're going to devote NASA to telling the Muslim world, you're good people. You're really smart. You're worthy. How very interesting. But here's what I find interesting. People have a problem with our concerns that Muslim fundamentalists are going into houses of Muslim worship. That's where Muslims are, by the way. They're going in. Why do you rob banks? That's where the money is. Why do you recruit out of a mosque? That's where you know the people are Muslims. So they're going in and trying to radicalize the people who are worshiping there. We don't seem to have a problem with them doing that. But how much money do we spend on education programs in public schools to keep drug dealers from going in and teaching kids to sell and use drugs? That's okay, because the other students and the parents of the students aren't bothered by that. But because some Muslims are offended that their mosques are being used as recruiting tools for radical Muslims, we don't want to break that up. We might offend the law-abiding Muslims. I'm not always sure that some of the people squawking don't have alternate agendas. And aren't they good at silencing those of us too afraid to offend? Michael Berry in for Mark Levin. Lots more. When Barack Obama stepped down from the United States Senate because he was elected president, part of the Blagojevich scandal exposed some of the people that were trying to get that Senate seat. One of them was Jessie Jackson Jr. I mean, his father's such a fine man. Why can't he be in the United States Senate? Well, he had some things to say on the floor of Congress today. And I think we should listen to this nice man because this is a good friend of President Obama. He said things like, we need to change the Constitution so that everybody gets an iPad. Now, you may say to yourself, is he a crackhead? No. He's Jessie Jackson's son. Imagine growing up the son of Jessie Jackson. Well, no, Jessie Jr., everybody needs an iPad. The Rainbow Coalition got an iPad. Up with hope, down with hope, up with hope, down with hope. He learned on the lap of Jessie Jackson, the Reverend Baby Daddy. That's his dad. What do we expect out of this? Who in Illinois elects this clown? But just listen to this, and it will all become clear. You will understand what you're dealing with in the Democratic Party.
We need to add to the Constitution the right to a family to have a decent home.
Yeah.
What would that do for home construction?
Yes.
In this nation?
Yes.
What would that do for millions of unemployed people?
Come on.
He says we need to add to the Constitution the right to medical care.
Yes, indeed.
How many doctors would such a right create?
Oh, yeah, more doctors.
He says we need to add to the Constitution of the United States the right to a decent education for every American.
Decent education.
How many schools would such a right build from Maine to California?
Yes.
How many people would be put to work building roofs and designing classrooms and providing every student with a pod and a laptop?
Yes.
How many ghettos and barrios will actually be touched by such an amendment? In fact, very little that we pass in the Congress of the United States even touches the long-term unemployed. Only thing that touches them that this Congress has access to that can actually change their station in life is the Constitution of the United States.
Do you know what would actually change the station in life of most poor people in America today, particularly poor? He refers to the ghettos and the barrios. I think he means inner city Hispanics and blacks. You know what would really change their station in life that nobody will tell? If men would stop knocking up women and then running away. If men would stop getting young women pregnant anywhere from the 9th grade to 20 years old and then walking around bragging about it. And if the girls would stop thinking that was really cool that they were now pregnant while they're in 9th grade. And if societies had a real problem with that, and if then that child didn't have to be birthed on my dollar, fed on my dollar, clothed on my dollar, educated on my dollar, yeah, that would be the single biggest way to change this country. Because you know what? It doesn't take a village to raise a child. It takes two parents. Two parents, not a village. It takes a village in poor African countries where you have to pool your resources. It doesn't take a village in this country where we are relatively wealthy. We have free education for anybody to go to. It's free to them. We pay for it. It doesn't take a village. It's not complicated. All the governmental programs that are offered aren't solving the problem. They're making it worse. You know what it takes? It takes personal responsibility. When the next time you hear a Democrat get up and give a speech about what poor blacks in this country don't have, ask yourself, whose fault is that? When are we going to say, listen here, you get a girl pregnant, you raise the kid. I don't care if you're in prison. I don't care if you're doing corner drug deals. You're raising that kid. That's it. Because the village is not going to. If you eliminated all these social programs and forced people to live with their consequences, maybe, just maybe, they'd stop. And how about we stop having all these gangbangers to the White House to serenade the president when their songs are about being some sort of a stud like they're a stallion? The president announced last year that in his iPod he's sampling Jay-Z and Lil Wayne. Really? Well, Lil Wayne was in jail while you were doing that. How about the president lift up some real role models who marry their baby mama and raise them? How about the president and his wife, instead of telling us how to eat, show their crackhead followers how to live? Because they seem to have the marriage and raising a child thing down. How about we stop pretending we don't know where the problems are and admitting that we do, but we're afraid of it? See, the real problems in America today, the real problems are fatherless homes, drug abuse and sales, violence in communities, and gangbanging. That's the real problem. You take that out, you can take out 75% of your social programs. You won't need them anymore. It's just that simple. Just that simple.